Dairy exports, and particularly exports to Mexico and Latin America, have been in the news recently. And today we have with us a person who's on the front lines of that effort. Jaime Castaneda is with National Milk and the U.S. Dairy Export Council. Welcome, Jaime. Tell us a little bit about your responsibilities.
Thank you, Joel, very much for the opportunity. I've been working for the U.S. dairy industry for 19 years. First and foremost, as a trade expert. That's what originally I was brought to do. And in addition to that, I do a lot of the domestic dairy policy for the National Milk Producers Federation. So it's a little bit of combination of both, but we have a great team on the U.S. Dairy Export Council dealing with trade issues.
Well, welcome. We're glad you're here. This past week, Mexico and the European Union apparently have reached some agreement on product into Mexico, and it appears that there may be a concession on the part of the Mexico folks about the use of common names, common food names, in our dairy case, cheese names. Tell us a little bit about that situation.
Yeah, no, that's a very timing question, and we've been fighting the European Union for many, many years now. And first it was in the World Trade Organization, in which the European Union was trying to do what they did on the wine side. On the food, same thing, so trying to confiscate common food names like Parmesan or salami and other wine names. So what we actually did is that once the Europeans started negotiating bilateral agreements, and their first bilateral in which they did this common food names confiscation was with Korea. So we created an organization called the Consortium for Common Food Names. The Consortium for Common Food Names now has actually not only a broad number of members here in the United States, but around the world. So this specific negotiation with Mexico is very close to us, because obviously Mexico is our #1 market. It's a market where we created a specific demand for names like Asiago, like Gorgonzola. Those names didn't exist. The Italians never actually sold a pound of Asiago. We actually sold it through whether the pizza chains or Burger King. There is a blend between of cheddar and Munster that is actually produced here in the United States. So all these different cheeses that now Mexico, in many cases, have actually given as sole producers and sellers to the Europeans is something that is actually very, very concerning. And we have expressed that concern, obviously, very openly. And we know that our government is very upset with the negotiations between Mexico and Europe.
You this week signed were part of an agreement with some of the Pan American countries on dairy activity. Can you tell us a little bit about the new Pan American agreement?
Yes, so there is organizations, international organizations like the International Dairy Federation, and in the Americas, there is an organization called the Pan American Dairy Federation. This organization has membership for all Latin American countries plus the United States. So in many situations in which the United States government goes to international organizations like Codex or the World Health Organization or OIE, which is where many of the items related to animal health or animal care are dictated. So in this type of organizations, the European Union many times bring their own agenda, which is different than ours. And they're trying to actually put in regulation items that are going to be in the future trade barriers. So for instance, if you have a free stall for your cows, and if you don't have one specific stall for per cow, or you don't have this many shade places, so all of this can actually be creating a problem. On the nutritional side, the World Health Organization is an organization that it is in many cases run by activists, and in many cases are having guidelines that are telling the world that it is inappropriate to promote the consumption of dairy products for children under 3 years old. Obviously, we completely oppose those statements, and we fight against those statements. But sometimes the United States find themselves by themselves. So the idea with Latin America is to work with them so we can align ourselves in this position in trying to protect and defend the image of dairy.
Thank you. It sounds encouraging. The gorilla in the room, perhaps, is what is going to happen in NAFTA in terms of its importance to U.S. dairy exports. Can you give us any insights to that situation?
Yeah, indeed, it is the gorilla in the room. It's obviously everybody has a high level of anxiety. Mexico, as you know, is our #1 market. So put aside that at this very moment, we're a little bit upset with Mexico because of that negotiations with Europe, but we expect that Mexico and the United States governments are going to negotiate satisfactory an agreement that will continue to defend at least the majority of our common names. But we also want to make sure that our market access in Mexico is not harmed. That's our #1 priority. Equally important is to, once and for all, have a true North American free trade agreement with Canada included. I mean, 95%, if not 99% of agriculture sector between Canada and the United States have a free flow of products, except dairy, poultry, and eggs. So we want to actually have this free flow. There is no reason why not. So we are encouraged by the U.S. government proposal to ensure that, you know, dairy is addressed. The President of the United States, as you know, have mentioned on a number of times that dairy farmers in Canada are not treating our farmers right. So we hope that this is going to be taken into account. Ambassador Lighthizer, with the United States Trade Representative who leads the negotiations, have stated that he wants to see the negotiations done in the next few weeks. So we are actually working closely with the U.S. government, and our expectation is that we're going to have an agreement that is going to be protecting what it is important in the Mexican side, and opening new opportunities and eliminating the pricing scheme of Class 7 and not having another type of pricing scheme to dump product out of Canada.
Thank you. That's Jaime Castaneda with the U.S. Dairy Export Council, and I'm Joel Hastings with Dairy Business News. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel.